Tonight, a very special edition of Outtakes with Rex Reel. There was a werewolf movie made locally. And you know how I love werewolf stories because I used to be one. And this was shot in McKeesport and North Versailles. And tonight, we have the writer and director of the movie and the star of the movie for exclusive interviews. So what we've done is we've shut down the time machine and we've given Rex Reel the night off as cinematic class is about to begin. And your professor is in. Greetings, salutations, another sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor and purveyor of truth in movies. And tonight it is a special edition of the show. And help me welcome, if you will, writer and director Mark Cantu and star Brian Saponis. They are the forces behind Wolf Hollow. This is a werewolf movie that was made locally. Mark, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Mark, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about werewolves, if we can. This is your first werewolf movie, so why werewolves this time?
That's a good question. So we were actually coming off of another horror movie at the time called Massacre Academy, which I did with this guy. And we were coming off of an 80s slasher comedy, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to stay in the same genre of horror, but try something a little bit different. And I've actually always had an odd kinship with werewolves. There's something kind of tragic about them. I think vampires kind of get like a lot more of the love, obviously, all the time, in literature and movies. And so to me, it's, you know, werewolves are kind of like, there's not as much respect for them. So I felt like, from my heart, I was like, you know what? I want to say something important about family. I want to do something a bit different. And what better to do it with?
You know, maybe if they
werewolves.
sparkled in the sunlight.
You know, I think I missed. Yeah, I think I missed out on that. I should have done that.
So
Can we go back and shoot that?
let's go back to let's Brian's character. Okay, I just got to show this.
Oh, no.
This is-
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
Do you see this? This is actually Bart's Funko Pop.
Yes.
Brian is Bart in the movie. He has his own Funko Pop.
And that's how you know you've made it, folks. That is it right
Honest
there.
to God, I've been in this
is it.
business for 40 years. I don't have a Funko Pop.
That's what they
But
tell
Brian does. Look at this. And it's got all the details.
me. Doesn't it look like me?
Yeah.
It's
It's quite nice.
resemblance is uncanny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've made it
amazing.
because I have my own Funko Pop.
Well, now that you have your own Funko Pop, we've got to ask you that I believe this is the first time you've ever played a werewolf.
Yes.
But, and I don't think we're giving anything away here, you actually played two werewolves.
Yes.
There's a brown werewolf and there's a gray werewolf.
There is.
And they're different werewolves. They're not the same werewolf. So how do you garner your thespian talent to portray a different Mian for a brown werewolf and a gray werewolf?
There is a difference. You definitely want to think about how you want to move and how you want to kind of attack who you're attacking.
Sure.
Because like I said, with when I was doing Bart, it was just full on like when I'm fighting with certain people in the film.
No spoilers, by the way.
No spoilers.
No
by the way. I'm
spoilers.
trying to, I, as I'm saying this, I'm trying to like.
You caught yourself. And
I did. I was like,
yeah.
it's a lot more active and a lot more kinetic, a lot more visceral and violent. And Evie is a lot more direct. I get in there, do my business, kill the people, and then I'm gone. So it's
Well, and for you, even like we had a discussion at one point too, like even just talking about your hands.
yes.
Like I remember having that
Yes.
conversation pretty early on,
We
like
did.
when we were doing the costume test, But it was like with Evie, she tends to move with her hands, and you can see her thinking even just in her hands, like the way she expresses herself. So sometimes like the Evie hands will kind of like be doing this, and whereas Bart is just like a freight train, just kind of like coming through. And like, there's a scene towards the end of the movie where we're going through some pallet tunnels, like these really narrow tunnels. And I think I told you at one point, I was like, I just want him like a Mack truck, like just barreling
That's
through.
what
Like
he
he
did.
does not care,
No.
you know, how he kind of moves through that. So
Which was interesting because those pallet tunnels were about 4 feet tall, at least it felt like.
right.
And I'm 6'5", and I'm trying to go through these tunnels and barrel through it without killing myself.
And with the ears, you're 7
Ears
feet.
and
Yeah.
With the ears, I'm 7 feet
Yeah.
tall. So it definitely made for Bart definitely fills the screen and fills the maze when he's coming through that thing
Right.
like a freight train. Which, but to answer your question, yeah, there was a difference depending on what werewolf suit I was wearing and how I approached it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your trek to werewolfery. This was a rather long and complicated road. You actually, if I have the timeline correct, you started off as a financial planner, which would have made you probably a wolf and not a werewolf. And then you went overseas and became a professional volleyball player. So a whole new meaning to the term six pack. And I've got to think that probably the money was very good when you were a financial planner. And I've also got to think that you were probably treated well in Europe as being a professional athlete. So with two of those things under your belt, what made you turn completely around and decide, I'm going to chuck all this and go into acting?
Because I'm a glutton for punishment. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank
welcome.
you. You know, acting is wow, so well paid when you're starting out. It's amazing how much money you can make when you have no experience. But yeah, your research is spot on Fiore in terms of I had a great job in the financial world, and then the volleyball career was quite fun, living in Europe, traveling around, playing volleyball. But it was kind of one of those things. I had two big goals I wanted to do: be a professional athlete and then be an actor. So once I was done with the athlete, okay, well, let's put all that aside. Life's too short to sit there and not try. So at the time we were living in Ireland with my wife, and I said to her, okay, well, it's time for the acting thing, I guess, if there's a time frame for it. And we moved out to Los Angeles from Dublin and started my acting career out there. We were out there for 11 years. And had never done anything horror related, which is kind of funny, up until Massacre Academy. And
That's right. Yeah.
he pulled me into the horror world, and then all of a sudden I went from doing a killer clown to I played Bigfoot to to werewolf, and then I played this hooded slasher guy, and so all of a sudden I was like horror. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Are you typecasting me, or
No.
are you seeing something?
You're just
that I-
really good at it.
I'm really tall. So
That's part of
I
it,
sell the
but it's
thing,
the acting part that we
the
love.
acting part.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
the-
that's kind of the gist of it. It's just I've always wanted to be an actor, but other things needed to be done first because I couldn't be a 40-year-old rookie trying to start my volleyball career, so I had to get that out of the
Not
way.
with that attitude.
That's true. That's why the acting thing started off so bad. What kind of attitude are you bringing?
We're going to get back to Ireland and LA in just a minute, but Mark, I want to pull you back into this too because your journey to movies was considerably more choppy than Brian's was. I want to make sure I get all this right here. You had to fight some real personal demons and some difficulties, both with depression and with alcoholism. I don't want to get into all the blood in the guts, but what I think the audience would like to know is how did movies, writing the movies, making the movies, being involved in movies as a writer and director, how did that spin you out of the trauma in your life and provide a haven for what you were going through?
So it's funny. I actually stopped everything altogether. I'd say probably end of 2017. So we were kind of coming off of I was coming off of like a pretty bad stretch where I was just absolutely just abusing the hell out of myself. And at that point, I decided I was like, I can't give my all. I can't do what I want to do without just stopping all this. And so I reached a point where I said, you know what? My life, my family, my wife, my kids, that's all more important to me than making movies. Like movies are great, but it's not the end all be all. It's not what my life should be about. And so I actually focused on my life first. And I remember there was a point for about, I'd say 6 or 7 months where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to pick up a camera again. And I genuinely meant that, where I was like, I don't even want to be on set. I don't want to talk about movies. I don't want to. And so freeing myself up that way, I guess emotionally, spiritually, that allowed me to go, okay, let me get all that off the table as it's not even a possibility. And as the real parts of myself kind of started to kind of emerge after all that, that I dealt with, that's when it was like, no, there actually is a real solid love for making movies here. And at that point during my therapy and everything, I decided, I was like, okay, but why do I want to make movies? Is it just because I enjoy the power, or do I want to tell a story? Like, what is the motivating factor? And I have to want to do it for the right reasons. And so with every project, the first thing I try to figure out, whether it was Massacre, whether it was the short film that I did to kind of get myself back on the horse to begin with, I'm always asking myself, what am I trying to say with this? What's the overall message to myself and to an audience that I have in my head? And if I can't answer that question, then I don't do it. So that to me is kind of very therapeutic, because I have to know what my through line is for everything. And if I don't, as long as that's solid to me, then I can answer any question throughout that entire creative process. So
to make matters a little bit more complicated, you ran into a couple of nefarious no-goods in the early portion
you
of
don't
your film
say.
career.
Yeah. So early on, and I won't name drop or anything like that, but like there were quite a few people that were kind of out for themselves. And in my naive state, I looked at them and said, well, they have my best interest at heart. They've got what I want. They hook into it. They understand what I'm trying to do here. They're all about family. And so those types of people were really good at kind of going, no, tell me more, Mark. Go ahead, give me everything. And as you give them more detail, they just go, okay, I'm going to use that, I'm going to use that, I'm going to use that, I'm going to use that. And so as we kind of went down certain roads, you kind of go, well, he's got my best interest because he's got the same values as I do. And you go, and then eventually you go, wait a minute, no, you don't. And then once you start to kind of peel away the layers, because it was a situation where we had applied for like a film grant or something like that in the city where I was in San Antonio, and we applied for a film grant, and he was like, you know what, to bolster our credentials, I'm going to give you this distribution letter because this company's already interested. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And then I went, wait a minute, like, who is this company? So I did a little bit of research, and then I found out, I was like, well, the company doesn't exist. And then you start to kind of peel back the layers. The company was registered in the same city that I was in, and I was like, but this is a company in LA, how are they registered here? And then you go, oh, this is owned by the same guy. So then who is this guy? Then it's it's hidden behind P.O. boxes and stuff like that. And as you start to peel the layers back, you go, oh, this was false, this was false, this was false. And so you just kind of start to know what to look for when people are kind of throwing you lines. And you go, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel right. Okay, I know that you're not telling me the truth. And it's made it easier to kind of sort through some people in the interim since then. So yeah, you learn the lessons. So.
Well, let's move back on to Brian.
No.
That felt like trouble.
That did.
Yeah.
Hope I'm going to say this right. While you were in Dublin, there was that night in
Oh my God.
Did some great research.
Did not put that
you
on.
attended, and I hope I'm saying this right, the Gaiety School of Acting in Dublin.
Oh my gosh.
My question to you, Brian, is what did the Gaiety School of Acting in Dublin offer you that was different from the American acting classes that you took?
You've dug deep on that one.
Did that one cut deep too? Did
no,
that hurt?
no. The Gaiety School is actually, it's a really, really good school over in Dublin. And it was one of those things that this was right before I was kind of done with volleyball. And I said, you know what, since I'm going to start the acting thing, let's take some classes and see what it's all about. So they were the school that was right there in Dublin where we were living. So I went there, took a couple classes, and it was great. I mean, I don't know if they taught me anything necessarily different than what I'd find over here. They did have a little different of an accent. But other than that,
So
no.
we can have an Irish werewolf in our future, amazing. You take that idea.
Seamus, the distant cousin of Burton.
See,
Court.
I would do as long as you dye your
Yes.
hair red.
I can do that.
I'm
Seamus
okay
will
with
come
that.
back. And he will avenge from the distant.
I should never have said anything.
Emerald
like
Isle,
creator
but-
of
No,
the-
you said the perfect thing. You said
That's
the perfect
oh
thing.
no, Seamus is coming back. But yeah, no, it was just kind of a way for me to kind of say, all right, if this is something I want to do, let's start getting serious about it. And
But they were pretty much the same as what you did
yeah,
over
it
here?
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't really anything like groundbreaking different from what I'd find
So
over
they didn't
here.
teach you to be a leprechaun or anything like that?
No, that would have been really interesting.
It
It's
would have been.
How
Tallest
do you take
leprechaun in the world.
The
Really
tallest.
good acting.
That is amazing. Like you look like you're 4 foot tall, even though you're 6
It's
foot.
like the shack
How'd you do
of leprechauns.
But I come with a pot of gold.
Let's talk about moving again, because you went and spent 11 years out in LA. And most people will tell you if they're going into acting, that's the place to be. And you stood up and went, enough, I'm going to Pittsburgh. Wow. What in the world pulled you from LA back to the Perg?
That was quite easy. We had a son while we were out there, who's now 10. And for the first few years, we're out there with him and flying back to Pittsburgh for Christmas and family functions and things. And it just got to a point where my wife and I talked about it, and we didn't necessarily want to raise him in LA because all of our family is back here in Pittsburgh. Both her and my family is all back here. And we made the decision, well, you know, we're going to move back because by that point I'd done enough acting. I've come established enough, if that's even the right way to say it, that I could be back in Pittsburgh and still be okay. And my wife landed a really good job when she moved back here. So the impetus for that whole thing was our son. We wanted to bring him back with family, raise him here. And the funny thing was, when I got back to Pittsburgh, I actually got busier
Really?
filmmaking and everything here than I was out in LA. And the other part of it, not only working with Mark and doing films, but I started my own production company with another gentleman, Jesse Hutchins, called Red Slate Films. So we're doing our own films that we're making and producing as well too. So between the films that I work on just as an actor and films that we're producing on our own, I've been quite busy, and it's been really, really good being back here in Pittsburgh. I can't complain. People are like, would you go back out? I don't know. It's someday maybe go back out to Los Angeles, but I have enough contacts out there that I can fly out there and still be a local hire, if you will, for that. And but I've loved it. Getting to hang out with this guy and work with this guy has been tremendous. And we've got a lot more things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And with the Red Slate stuff, we've got some big things coming down the pike with that. So it's been
Mark,
really good.
You made a big change too. You were in Texas.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everything's bigger in Texas. And you came
Yeah.
over here
Yeah.
to Pittsburgh. What was your thought behind that?
So it was a little kind of like that as well for us. We had already started my career in San Antonio and did a couple of movies, and by that point it was kind of I'd earned a reputation as being an action director and like doing kind of the same stuff over and over again, even with short films. And I was like, you know what, I want to try something different. I want to try a different environment. And so at that point we also wanted our kids to kind of see the seasons finally and actually have snow, because you kind of get
Geez,
tired.
why was that important?
So my wife actually grew up in the Mount Joy, Hershey area. So she was from there originally, and she was
Okay.
born in Geneva, New York. But she had memories of being in the snow when she was a kid and things like that. And I was like, it snowed twice when I was maybe like 5 or 6 when we were in San Antonio, back in '85 or '86. And I just remember thinking like that would be great to have that kind of childhood. And so we decided to move up at that point. And at the same time, cost of living in Pittsburgh is pretty much the same as San Antonio. And then more importantly, the access to a bunch of different cities, whether it was Philadelphia, D.C., Cleveland, even New York is within driving distance. Like I said, you could go and do a couple of different cities if you wanted to. If I need to go work for photography, do music videos, which I've done at this point. So it just gave us a bunch of different options, because if you're in Texas, especially in San Antonio, it's kind of like 4 or 5 hours just to even get anywhere else, really. And, you know, it's kind of limited at that point. But here in Pittsburgh, I mean, things are happening constantly. You've got studios here as well. Netflix is here constantly. So like, there's a lot more work going on. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us at that point, if we were going to push.
In one of your earlier answers on the show, you had mentioned that when you were thinking about getting out of it, you were wondering if it was just for the power. So I need to ask, when you're directing a movie, are you the type of director who, you know, you're the boss, you rule with the iron fist, or is it one of those, are you one of those directors that is open to suggestions from the cast and the crew? I maybe should have asked you that, huh?
It's kind of like smiling. I'm like,
Go on, Mark. It doesn't matter because nobody listens to me anyway. They do their own thing. You know what? And honestly, and this is a no BS answer, I wind up being as open as possible. I think the guidelines that I put down usually come from the beginning of the process, which is whether it's in the script phase, whether it's in prep. We kind of know what is expected at that point. So by the time we actually get to set, it's really just, we're kind of there just to do our job on the day. So I don't really scream, I don't really yell. I'm not like that kind of, don't make that face. Don't make that face.
I was agreeing with you.
How dare
How
you?
dare me?
You know what? I can't do this.
I have to add to it, though. In all seriousness, Mark is one of the most prepared directors and filmmakers that I know. I mean, you come on set, you know exactly what you're doing for that day, and you get it done, and everything is done efficiently and quickly and of the highest quality. Like, we are done early.
Almost all the time.
Pretty much every day, which in this business, if anybody works in this business, you know, being done early never happens. You may do it once. Every day on set, we are done early, and we've got everything we needed to get.
And it's good.
And it's good. And he's right. He doesn't yell, but he'll give you that look, kind of like,
that's not the look. That's not it.
I
It's
guess
more pursed in the lips. It's more like,
yeah.
it's the disappointed dad look. Where
guess
it's just like, that's what you're going to do?
I
Really?
guess we're going again. We're doing this again. So okay, fine. We'll do it again. Just
So I
run
will
the camera.
say that like the collaboration starts in the pre-production and everything else, like the script phase, because even like in the script writing phase, Saponis and I will throw things back and forth, and I'll go, does this feel right? Does it? And he'll make suggestions, and he'll go, no, let's turn the character this way. I don't understand why that's not clearer or this. And especially with our relationship, I mean, like, we are able to just kind of say, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't, do you want to go again? Does this feel, you know, let me have one more crack at it. And then even in the post-production phase, like when we're editing, there are times where I'm like, I've cut stuff. And he's just like, what are you doing? Put that back. What? And I'm like, we don't need it. And he's like, yes, we do.
You trying to make the movie 15 minutes long? What are you trying to do?
Right.
Man? Come on.
But yeah, but there's so much, like I said, and it's a give and take. And again, if something really is like, no, I want it this way, I'll make a case for it. I won't just say, well, do it this way because I said so. I'll never do that. And I think that just comes from years of being on set where I've seen people do that, and I hated people like that. Where it's like, I've watched people get rolled by that and whisper in directors' ears, like, you better do it my way right now because blah, blah. You're like, can you just chill out for like this speaks to you never being prepared. Like, you're not on the same page. You don't know what you're doing, and it leads to arguments on set. And I think maybe on Wolf, maybe we had like one day like that where it was like, and it was more like a time constraint because equipment wasn't working. But other than that, like, everything was, we were on schedule, on point every single day.
Speaking of arguments, Mark and I were talking online, and he usually starts his stories out with storyboards. So he put up a little picture and a little tag, and he said, storyboarding the next movie, it's going to be epic, all that type of thing. So I said, well, you know, break the news on the show. We're in the studio Thursday, break the news. And came in today, and he has nothing. No storyboards, nothing. So, you know, I've got to put him on the spot, and I've got to say, Hey, Mark, what's next for you? What's the new
Well,
story
it's
going
been
to be
fun.
all about?
I'm gonna go ahead and head out now.
I'll take it from here.
Yeah, you got it, right? You know enough about it, right? First of all, I'm sorry for not bringing them.
Was that the look?
That was almost the
That's
look.
kind of
Right. It's kind of in the ballpark. So the next movie that I'm planning on, like I said, I can't go into too much detail or else my wife will kill me. And I enjoy being married, so I'm not going to do that. But the next movie that we are going to do, and this is the first time I'm saying it out loud to like an actual audience. So, but the next movie we're going to do is a movie called Grind. So, and that is not an adult movie. I'm going to say that right now.
Who made that mistake?
I don't know. I don't know. This is the look. That is the one right there.
There it is. I got the look.
But
Got
yes,
the look.
but it has to do with grindhouse movies. So that's what we're going with. But once you guys see the posters, you'll understand,
Yeah.
which we already have like 20 of them at this point.
there's a
So-
whole bunch.
And
But-
Brian, you're going to be working with him again.
I am. I'm looking
So
forward
you,
to
what?
it.
you two
Yes.
have a nice collaboration
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
But what about Red Slate? What's going on with them?
We
You work with other directors? How dare you?
so this is gonna be a conversation between me and Fiore. We're actually gearing up. We've done a bunch of shorter films, and we're gearing up for our first feature. We have a feature-length film called Done Waiting. Actually, we're taking out to Los Angeles in August. We're doing a screening out there for hopefully some industry folks and stuff, because we finished a script, a full feature script for another film called A Quiet Town, which we're planning on shooting late summer next year. But that's going to be it's going to be a pretty significant budget for us. So there's a whole pre-production, like Mark was saying with anything. All the work's in the pre-production, and then a lot of the work's going to be in, okay, how are we going to finance this thing? Because we want to make sure that this is done as studio quality as we can get it. Coming from independent film in Pittsburgh, but. That's kind of the next big thing for Red Slate is A Quiet Town. That's our big thing. But in the interim, we're actually doing this little short Civil War film that we're going to do. And I'm just going to leave it at that. We got some really interesting things going on with that might surprise some folks around here.
We were talking about that off camera.
Yeah. So we're gonna take a run at that, and we've had this script sitting around for a couple of years. One of those things, hey, we want to do it if we get the chance, and this opportunity arose, and like, okay, well, let's dust that off and get this done, because this opportunity doesn't come along all the time. So we're going to take advantage of that and see how it comes out. And then once we get that done, it's all hands on deck for A Quiet Town to get that film done next year.
And if you've ever seen any of their stuff, like I said, Red Slate is just one of the top tier groups here in town. Like Jesse Hutchins is
He's
an absolute fantastic filmmaker. He's so good. So
Great eye, great, good cinematographer, director, and well, that's the thing. We like even with Mark's stuff, you just want to. Sometimes you see some of these younger filmmakers, and you want to ask them, like, do you watch movies? Do you know what they look like? And does yours look like that? No.
Does it have a killer kite in it?
Well,
Or
we've
a
come
gator.
full circle
Or a
now.
gator.
So it's,
See, that's the thing. Maybe they need this little guy with a rubber gator attacking somebody in there.
You know what? You've spoiled what the next movie is about, guys. Thanks.
I'm
Appreciate
sorry.
it.
I tend to.
Brian, Mark,
Spoilers,
I
dude.
appreciate you guys stopping by. We could probably talk about werewolves and why you picked Pittsburgh to make this in and all that happy stuff, but we are fresh running out of time here. So I'm afraid we have to wrap this up. However, I've had it on good word that there may be a few copies of Wolf Hollow left in the studio, and if so, I will be giving them away on a future episode of Outtakes with Rex Reel, so you can add Wolf Hollow, and you can check for yourself if Brian makes a better brown werewolf or gray werewolf when you watch the movie. Gentlemen, thanks again for stopping by.
Thanks
We
for
like
having
when
us.
movies are made in Pittsburgh and they do well. Wolf Hollow, its official opening is in August.
August 8th.
August 8th. There you go. Now that you have learned what you have learned, here endeth your lesson.